Hi, everyone.
Hello. We're on page 608 of In Search of Christian Freedom. Ray has been telling us about Rene Greutmann, a Swiss Jehovah's Witness, who had gone to jail for not enrolling in military service and had lost his job for not compromising on the blood issue, but felt compelled at this stage in his life to write a letter to Fred Franz personally about the way in which he had observed that sensitive Jehovah's Witnesses tended to react badly to the constant pressure that they felt, being serious about their faith. The constant pressure left him, at least, not wanting to attend meetings regularly anymore. So he was honest in telling his story directly to Fred Franz, he thought, and he detailed 4 suicides that he knew about among witnesses that he personally knew, and also other cases of witnesses who needed psychiatric help. And then Ray kicks in at the bottom of that page 608 with a footnote about suicides he knew about. So here's Ray's comments. This is not something exceptional. I know similarly of several suicides among witnesses, including one occurring while I was at the international headquarters, in which a staff member jumped to his death from the top of one of the society's factory buildings. Another in 1990, when a longtime member of the staff and a former member of the factory committee jumped to his death from the 3rd floor of one of the society's residences. And I have correspondence listing an even greater number of suicides known to those writing. Any tally of the number in other lands, particularly in the industrialized nations, would undoubtedly be considerable, though such matters are generally kept quiet and never published.
Yeah. Rene, however, had a much more personal case to relate, the gentleman who wrote the letter to Fred Franz. He related how he met and married his wife Clarisse, a zealous witness. She had moved to the German-speaking part of Switzerland, lived with a family of witnesses, and in time started pioneer service while working half-days as a secretary to support herself. She often bicycled up to an hour to reach her assigned rural territory. Conscientious, she pushed herself to the point where she felt unable to continue, but was still encouraged to keep on by the circuit overseer to whom she spoke. Adding to her stress, she experienced problems with a witness, a married man who had made passes at her. She reported the matter to the congregation overseer, but thereafter suffered the anger of the married man's wife for having done so. Before long, she gave way to an emotional breakdown. Her parents brought her home to the French-speaking part of Switzerland, but she was extremely depressed, and the following morning she went to the roof of the 4-story building and jumped. She survived, but incurred multiple fractures on both legs and pelvis. The doctor had to amputate her right leg below the knee.
When Rene met her, she had learned to walk with an artificial limb, but she had never been able to recover from the effects of what had happened. She felt that she had failed as a pioneer and thus had failed God, and that her purpose in life was finished. She could not find forgiveness for herself for the things she had done. In his letter, directed to the Watchtower organization, Rene, that is her husband, wrote, quote, "Naturally, she later heard that nobody had first forced her to go beyond her capacity in pioneering. Neither the persons that made these comments nor Clarisse knew of the power of constantly repeated recommendations and counsel in a tiring program. But you know it," Rene says, "and God knows it." The end of the quote from Rene.
Rene found Clarisse to be a lovely woman, despite her handicap, normally a bright, outgoing person. They married, after 3 years had a child, and Rene later took her to live in California, in the hope that it would enable her to break with the past and overcome her feelings of guilt and depression. They associated with a witness congregation, but found little understanding or warmth of acceptance and this disturbed Clarisse. Rene recognized that his inability to give total support to all the organization's teachings and practices may have contributed to the local witnesses not giving much attention to them. He said he felt that to gain full acceptance he would have had to submit to all teachings without thinking, to become a tape recorder that faithfully repeats everything that it is told. He adds, "I don't know how long I could have taken this without getting depressed myself."
Clarisse underwent psychiatric treatment for a while in Switzerland and then moved back to the United States, but with only minimal improvement in her feeling of depression. The sense of having failed religiously persisted. Rene offered to move back to Switzerland, but she expressed her preference to stay in California. One night in October 1975, she left for an appointment at Kaiser Hospital. She did not return. The following morning, their car was located, parked near the Golden Gate Bridge. Her body was found floating in the waters of the bay. She was 34 years old.
There's a picture of her. She's a lovely looking woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, very sad.
We'll put a link on your screen to Vivian's own testimony of the depression she went through that lasted well over a year.
Mm-hmm.
Before we were disfellowshipped and, of course, after. And that was part of your witness,
Yeah.
Vivian's witness series. So we'll put that up. And next time, Rene continues the story.